We certainly have much on our plate to digest within this lesson. Before we start with our activities, we first need to sharpen our knives to cut our food for thought into meaningful ideas. We need to sharpen our understanding of teaching perspectives, the key concept of this unit, by reflecting on the meaning of our own teaching perspectives. Let us start by considering a practical example of how our teaching perspective influences how we approach our teaching, interpret content, and evaluate. Think about the following discussion between two grade 3 teachers.
Ms. Radebe, I'm very happy with the outcome of the English lesson on the simple present tense that I gave my learners today.
Lovely. Tell me more, Mr. Pillay.
We drilled 5 examples of this tense in a dialogue that they learned by heart.
Yes, and then?
By the end of the lesson, all the learners could repeat the dialogue without making any mistakes.
I see.
They know how to use the simple present tense.
But will your learners know how to use the simple present tense outside this dialogue?
Why do you ask, Ms. Radebe? They will not use the simple present tense in their own dialogues because the one that I gave them is about making uniforms. They are not interested in this topic, but they know how to use the correct form of verb, and that is what matters.
I beg to differ, Mr. Pillay. I believe it is very important that my learners understand how to use the simple present tense in their own sentences when they are talking about things that they like. I want my lesson to motivate my learners so that they are confident to use the simple present tense when they are communicating inside and outside the classroom. Then I am happy with my outcomes of my lesson.
This example shows how two teachers evaluate the effectiveness of their teaching from two different teaching perspectives. Our teaching perspectives reflect our viewpoints about teaching. The Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary 2014 describes the meaning of the word perspective as a way of looking at or thinking about something. When we teach, we do not really think about how we teach. We teach according to our beliefs and intentions. These were mostly shaped by our teachers, schools, parents, communities, and by our interactions with our lecturers and fellow students. Our teaching perspectives are lenses through which we look to decide about the success or failure of our lessons. We can only adjust the focus of our lenses to see more clearly and to teach with more insight when we are prepared to look at and not through our teaching perspectives. Let us start our reflections by looking at our own teaching perspectives. Take a few minutes to reflect on your teaching perspective. How do you see or view teaching? How do learners learn best? And what has shaped or influenced how you see your teaching? I would like to share some well-known teaching perspectives. This mind map presents 3 of 5 major teaching perspectives described by Pratt and Associates that are most relevant to foundation phase classroom practices. They are the transmission perspective, the developmental perspective, and the nurturing perspective. Let's look at the lenses of these perspectives more closely. The transmission perspective. The teacher transmits the content to learners who receive it. This traditional perspective on teaching emphasizes the important role of the teacher who chooses what and how much content the learners should receive. Seen from this perspective, the teacher and the content play the most important roles. The underlying belief about this approach is that successful teaching depends on how well the teacher has mastered the content. This perspective has a teacher-centered approach to teaching and learning. We will be looking at this approach in more detail in the next subsection of this unit. The developmental perspective. This perspective focuses on developing learners' understanding of content by helping them to use what they already know, their prior knowledge, to build or construct their new knowledge with understanding. The developmental teaching perspective favors the constructivist learning theory that we will discuss in more detail in the next unit. What is important to consider for our reflection on teaching perspectives in this unit is that teachers believe in developing their learners' thinking and problem-solving skills for meaningful interpretation of new content. This perspective has a learner-centered approach to teaching and learning. The next subsection of this unit covers this approach in more detail. The nurturing perspective. The teacher develops learners' self-esteem and confidence by caring about and respecting each learner as an individual. The teacher uses content as a means to develop learners' self-confidence as competent, lifelong learners who will be able to meet the challenges of their chosen careers. The underlying belief of this perspective is that successful teaching is influenced most by learners' self-confidence in being able to learn. Earlier on, I asked you to reflect on your teaching perspective. Now that you have had the opportunity to hear about the transmission, developmental, and nurturing teacher perspectives, take a moment to revisit your teaching perspective. So, has it changed? If it has changed, I'm now very curious to know where your commitment now lies.